The wrong door. There is a philosophy among certain people that says, whatever happens, just stay calm and think it through. Don't panic. Assess the situation. Make a reasonable decision. This philosophy assumes that the situation gives you enough time to do that. It does not always give you enough time. The setup is simple. A man was outside his apartment building in Florissant, Missouri. There was a barbecue grill nearby, the kind of communal outdoor grill that apartment complexes put out so residents can enjoy the summer. He was in the vicinity of the grill. He tripped. Now, tripping is not normally a life-threatening event. People trip every day. You trip, you catch yourself, you look around to see if anyone saw you. You walk away with whatever dignity you have left. Normal. What was not normal is where he fell. He stumbled forward and went straight into the door of his neighbor's apartment. Not knocked on it. Not bumped it. Went into it. The full weight of a falling man against a door that someone was on the other side of. The neighbor inside heard something hit his door hard, without seeing what was on the other side, without knowing it was an accident, without knowing it was his neighbor, without knowing it was a man who had simply tripped over a barbecue grill. The neighbor opened fire through the door. The man outside was shot and killed. Let's be precise about what happened here. The grill did not explode. The grill did not catch fire. The grill did not malfunction in any way. The grill just sat there, as grills do, and a man tripped over it. And the chain of events that followed, the fall, the door, the neighbor, the shot, unfolded in about 3 seconds. 3 seconds between standing next to a grill and gone. The grill was not charged with anything. The grill remains at large. The church barbecue. If there is one place where you should be safe from the universe's sense of humor, it is a church barbecue. A church barbecue is the most benign event in American life. People bring potato salad. Someone brings brownies that everyone says are great even when they're not. There are folding tables with plastic tablecloths. Children run around. Nobody is doing anything dangerous. It is, by definition, the opposite of a situation where something terrible happens. Doug Grip understood this. He was 52 years old, a member of the men's ministry at his church in Indiana, and he was setting up the gas grill for the event. Not cooking on it yet. Not doing anything complicated. Setting it up. The most routine part of the most routine activity at the most routine kind of event in America. The grill was a large model with a main cooking area, a side burner, and a big warming compartment. The kind of grill that looks impressive at a church event and signals that the men's ministry is serious about its food. It had been sitting there, waiting. What Doug did not know was that propane gas had been slowly accumulating inside the warming compartment. Not a dramatic amount. Not an obvious amount. An invisible amount, because propane is colorless and odorless unless treated with an additive. And sometimes even then you miss it. The gas had settled in the compartment, heavy and patient, waiting for an ignition source. Doug lit the side burner. The propane inside the warming compartment ignited. The pressure of the explosion forced open the warming compartment door. A heavy metal door, the kind rated to hold heat and weight in whatever you put in it. The door blew open at high speed and struck Doug Grip directly. He died from the impact, not from fire, not from the explosion itself, from the door of his own grill, moving at speed, delivering the verdict on a gas accumulation that had been building silently while he set up the folding tables. The Hamilton County coroner ruled it accidental. Of course it was accidental. Nobody in the history of church barbecues has intentionally triggered a propane explosion at the men's ministry event. What it was, specifically, was the universe deciding that even the most innocent context is not a guarantee, and that even at a church. Even at a barbecue. Even when you are just setting up the grill before anyone has eaten anything, the grill has opinions. The wrong fuel. There is a specific type of frustration that everyone who has ever used a charcoal grill understands. The charcoal will not light. You used the lighter fluid, you lit it, it flared up. You waited. The charcoal is just sitting there, gray and indifferent, doing absolutely nothing. You add more lighter fluid, same result, you try again, nothing. At some point, the charcoal begins to feel like it is doing this deliberately, like it has made a personal decision not to cooperate with you today. This is the moment when some people make good decisions. They wait longer, they try a chimney starter, they accept that charcoal has its own timeline, and they are not in charge of it. These people have a normal barbecue. A 19-year-old in Georgiana, Alabama, made a different decision. The lighter fluid was not working fast enough. He had a container of diesel fuel and gasoline nearby, the kind of fuel mixture that is available in rural Alabama for equipment and vehicles and various legitimate purposes. He decided to use it on the grill. Here is the relevant chemistry delivered without judgment. Gasoline vaporizes at room temperature. Lighter fluid is specifically formulated to be controlled when applied to charcoal. Gasoline is not formulated for this. Gasoline is formulated to power internal combustion engines, which means it is designed to release a very large amount of energy very quickly. He poured it on the grill. The fire that resulted was not the fire he was trying to start. His father and his brother were also in the area and were also caught in the flash. Both of them were injured. He was the only one who did not survive. The charcoal, for what it's worth, lit immediately. Whether this is ironic or simply the expected outcome of applied physics is a question the charcoal does not have opinions about. The charcoal just sat there and did what charcoal does when exposed to a sufficient ignition source. The charcoal was just doing its job. The charcoal finally cooperated. It just did not cooperate the way anyone wanted. The bet. Every bad decision in human history has a moment where it could have stopped. A moment where someone could have said, actually, no. A moment where the situation was still recoverable. This story has several of those moments. It proceeds through all of them without stopping. It was 2017, Rowan County, North Carolina. There was a barbecue. There was alcohol, which is relevant to the decision-making quality of what follows. And there was Gary Allen Banning, who at some point during the evening found himself in a conversation that ended with a bet. The bet was, could he drink gasoline? Now, the correct answer to this question, the answer that everyone who has ever gone through a standard American education or watched a single documentary about fuels, or simply existed as a human being with basic pattern recognition, is no. Not as a boast, not as a caveat, factually, categorically, chemically, no. Gasoline is not a beverage. It is not close to a beverage. It was never designed to be near a human digestive system. Gary Allen Banning drank the gasoline. He won the bet. This is an important fact. He consumed the gasoline and was upright and functioning. This was, by the terms of the wager, a victory. Then he lit a cigarette. Gasoline, when ingested, does not simply stay in the stomach. The vapors migrate. They become part of the breath. The exhaled air of a person who has just consumed gasoline contains flammable compounds. This is documented. This is physics. This is not something that changes based on how confident you feel about your decision. Gary Allen Banning died. He won the bet. He lost everything else. The other people at the barbecue reportedly watched the whole sequence in the specific silence of people processing something that they will be describing for the rest of their lives. The grill was still going. The meat was still cooking. The beer was still cold. The barbecue continued to exist as a context even after it stopped being a barbecue and became something else entirely. The leaf blower. The charcoal grill is a test of patience that America has been failing since 1952. It takes time. The coals need to heat up. The gray ash needs to form. You need to wait 20 to 30 minutes before the surface is ready to cook on. This is the rule. This has always been the rule. It is on the back of every bag of charcoal, and it has been on the back of every bag of charcoal for as long as bags of charcoal have existed. Some people wait 20 to 30 minutes. These people have a normal barbecue. Some people look at the grill, look at the shed, see the leaf blower hanging there on its hook, and think, what if I introduced more oxygen at higher velocity? What if I simply accelerated the process? What if I treated this grill problem as an engineering problem? This person picked up the leaf blower and pointed it at the charcoal. The charcoal, which had been sitting there building heat and developing a nice bed of embers and doing exactly what charcoal is supposed to do given time, suddenly received approximately 160 cubic feet of air per minute at high velocity. Embers are light. Embers are basically carbon dust that has achieved a temperature above 500 degrees Celsius. When you introduce high-velocity air to a collection of embers, the embers go where the air takes them, which is in this case, outward, in all directions, including backward, including toward the person operating the air delivery device. The man was badly burned. The injuries were severe enough to be fatal. He died from the results of applying a solution designed for leaves to a problem involving fire. In his defense, more oxygen does accelerate combustion. He was not wrong about the chemistry. He was wrong about the directionality. He assumed the additional oxygen would make the fire go down into the coals, faster and hotter. The fire had other ideas about which way it wanted to travel. The grill was eventually ready to cook on. Nobody cooked on it. The spare tank. Preparation is a virtue. We praise preparation. We tell children to be prepared. Scouts are built around the concept. The entire field of project management exists because preparation is good and the lack of it is bad. Being prepared is generally the right move, unless you are being prepared with a propane tank and you have placed that preparation directly next to a heat source, in which case preparation becomes a specific kind of problem. The setup. A family barbecue in California. The grill was going, the food was cooking, everything was normal. And someone, with the genuinely good intention of making sure the grill would not run out of fuel midway through the meal, placed a spare propane bottle close to the grill. Right there. Ready to go. When the first tank runs out, you grab the spare. No interruption. No one has to go to the garage. Efficient. Prepared. A propane tank is a metal container full of compressed, liquefied gas. The liquid becomes gas as it is used. The pressure inside the tank is calibrated for normal ambient temperatures, the kind of temperatures you encounter in a backyard on a summer day. The keyword is ambient. A propane tank sitting in the sun on a summer day is one thing. A propane tank sitting 3 feet from a grill that is generating significant radiant heat is a different thing. The temperature around the tank rises. As temperature rises, the pressure inside the tank rises. This is basic thermodynamics. This is what pressure gauges and safety valves are for. The spare propane bottle, heated by the radiant energy of the grill it was standing next to, expanded until the pressure exceeded what it was designed to hold. It exploded. A woman nearby sustained severe injuries to her neck from the explosion. She did not survive. The irony is not that she was unprepared. The irony is that she was too prepared. So prepared that the extra equipment she brought to the situation became the situation. The spare tank that was supposed to prevent an inconvenience became the event. Store your spare propane away from the grill, in the shade, in the shed, anywhere that is not next to a device that is actively producing heat. This is in the manual. This has always been in the manual. The manual exists because this has happened before. More than once, in more than one backyard, to more than one person who was just trying to make sure dinner didn't get interrupted. The nap. Here is a list of places it is acceptable to fall asleep. A bed, a couch, a hammock, an armchair, a long flight, a boring meeting that does not require your input, the back seat of a car where someone else is driving. Here is a place that is not on that list. Next to an active grill. The logic of falling asleep next to a grill is understandable, even though it is catastrophically wrong. You are outside. It is warm. The food is cooking and you are keeping an eye on it, which is comfortable. Maybe you had a beer. Maybe it was a long week. The sun is at a good angle. The chair is decent. The grill is humming along. There is no immediate action required of you. And then your eyes close. Just for a second. Just to rest them. You are still monitoring the situation. You are monitoring it from behind your eyelids. A man in Pennsylvania fell asleep in a lawn chair while keeping watch over his grill. At some point during his monitoring of the situation, the fire did what fire does when it is left unsupervised. It found something additional to burn. Embers, carried by the breeze, found dry material nearby. The kind of dry material that summer backyards produce. Dead leaves, dry grass, old wood. Whatever was adjacent to the cooking area. The fire spread from the grill to the surrounding area. Then it spread to the structure. By the time anyone else was aware of the situation had progressed significantly beyond what a sleeping man in a lawn chair could have managed. Even if he had been awake, he was found dead in the fire. The nap lasted longer than the barbecue. The official cause was the unattended grill. Unattended is doing a lot of work in that phrase, because he was physically present the entire time. He was right there. He was just experiencing the grill through the medium of unconsciousness, rather than active supervision. The grill does not care about the distinction. The grill requires your actual attention, not your physical proximity. It is not enough to be nearby. You have to be awake. The U-Haul. Moving is stressful. You have to box everything up. Rent a truck, load the truck, drive the truck, unload the truck, and figure out where your kitchen stuff went while somehow also managing the transition from one life location to another. It is a lot. In the rush and chaos of moving, you grab things and put them in the truck and deal with the specifics later. You grab the lamp and put it in the truck. You grab the outdoor furniture and put it in the truck. And at some point, you grab the propane tank from the grill because the grill is going to the new house too. And you put the propane tank in the truck. A man in Lewiston, Idaho in 2025 was moving. His belongings were loaded into a U-Haul rental truck. Among those belongings was a propane tank, the standard 20-pound tank that sits under a backyard gas grill, the kind that every American household with a gas grill either owns or has owned at some point. The tank was in the truck. The truck was in motion. At some point during transport, the tank tipped or shifted. It was not secured in a way that kept it upright and stable, because securing propane tanks during transport is a specific requirement that is not intuitive if nobody has ever told you about it. A propane tank lying on its side does not behave the same way as a propane tank standing upright. The liquid propane inside moves toward the valve. If the valve is not the specific type designed for this, or if the pressure conditions change, gas can escape. The gas accumulated inside the enclosed truck. All it needed was an ignition source, a spark, a component of the truck's systems, anything. It found one. The U-Haul exploded. The man was killed in the blast. There is a specific federal regulation about transporting propane. It requires the tank to be upright, secured, and transported in a ventilated space, not the enclosed cargo area of a rental truck. This regulation exists because this has happened before. It happened again in 2025. It will keep happening as long as propane tanks are small enough to carry and rental trucks are large enough to fit them. He was moving to a new place. He did not make it to the new place. The impossible poisoning. Carbon monoxide poisoning from a charcoal grill is by now a well-known risk. Everyone has seen the warnings. Never use a charcoal grill indoors. Never bring it into a tent, a garage, a car, any enclosed space. The gas is invisible, odorless, and it will kill you before you realize anything is wrong. This is on the packaging. This is in the news. This is documented in hundreds of cases. The reason those warnings say enclosed space is that outdoors, in the open air, carbon monoxide disperses. It goes up and out and away. The concentration never gets high enough to be dangerous. This is physics. This is why outdoor barbecues are fine and indoor barbecues are not fine. Except a group of people set up their barbecue in the corner of a building, the kind of L-shaped corner where two exterior walls meet, creating a right angle. It was a reasonable place to put a grill, sheltered from the wind, out of the way of foot traffic, conveniently close to the back door. Thousands of people have put their grill in a corner like this. Most of them are fine. The problem is what corners do to airflow. Outdoors, with wind, the carbon monoxide from the charcoal would normally disperse in multiple directions and dilute quickly to harmless levels. But in a corner, the walls create a pocket. The wind, instead of carrying the gas away, circulates it back. The corner acts like a partial enclosure. Not a room, not a tent, but enough geometry to change how the gas moves. The carbon monoxide concentration in that corner built up to levels that would normally require an enclosed space to achieve. Several people were poisoned. The case was documented in a medical journal specifically because it was considered unusual enough to be worth recording. Outdoor CO poisoning from a corner placement. Some of those people did not survive. The rule about charcoal grills and enclosed spaces has always been correct. What this case demonstrates is that enclosed is not a binary category. You do not need 4 walls and a ceiling to create the conditions for poisoning. You need enough geometry to trap the gas. A corner is enough geometry. A corner with no wind is enough. The grill was outside the entire time, technically, but the corner was doing work that the inside of a garage usually does. The flying grill. At no point in the design of American roads, traffic regulations, or the general social contract of driving did anyone account for the possibility of an airborne barbecue grill. This is a gap in the framework that nobody noticed because it seemed like an edge case. Grills are heavy. Grills sit on patios and decks and in backyards. And at campgrounds. Grills do not fly. This was a reasonable assumption. This assumption was wrong in Macedon, New York, in the summer of 2017. A camper was being towed down Route 31. Attached to the back of the camper's hitch was a large barbecue grill. The owners were heading somewhere for a trip, and they were bringing their grill. Because bringing your own grill is a thing that Americans do, and it had presumably worked fine on every previous trip. The camper hit a bump. The grill, which was attached to the tow hitch, began to wobble. The camper hit a second bump. The grill's wobble became something worse. The connection that was supposed to hold the grill to the camper reached the limit of what it could hold. The grill separated from the camper. Moving at highway speed, an object that separates from a moving vehicle does not stop. It continues moving, carrying the momentum it had as part of the vehicle, and it goes somewhere. In this case, it went into the air and came back down into a car traveling in the opposite direction on Route 31. Seth Krebix was the passenger in that car. He was killed by the impact. The grill had traveled from the camper's hitch through the air and into a car that had nothing to do with the camper, the trip, or any grill-related activity. He was simply in a car on a road in New York on a summer day. The grill survived the incident. This fact is in the news report, and it sits there without comment, which is appropriate because no comment would add anything. If you tow a grill, secure it. Not to the hitch, in the vehicle, or in a proper trailer. Secured so that bumps on Route 31 are not able to redefine its trajectory. The grill does not know it is supposed to stay attached to the camper. You have to tell it, and the way you tell it is with proper restraints. The fall. There is a specific cruelty to the category of medical events that happen while you are doing something ordinary, not while you are rock climbing, not while you are doing something where risk is understood and accepted. While you are standing in your backyard next to your grill on an afternoon that was supposed to be completely normal. The medical event does not consult your schedule before arriving. It does not check whether your current location is convenient. A man in Wichita Falls, Texas, which is, for context, a city in North Texas that has been named the way Texas names things with full commitment to geographical description, was in his backyard in 2017. He was at his grill. Investigators later believed he experienced a medical episode of some kind. A cardiac event, a loss of consciousness, something that removed his ability to control his own body without warning. He fell. The grill was directly in front of him. A charcoal grill is, at operating temperature, somewhere between 300 and 700 degrees Fahrenheit. At the grate, it is an open container of fire. If a standing person falls directly forward, and there is an open grill in their path, the grill does not move. The person does not have the ability to redirect in mid-fall if they have lost consciousness. He fell into the grill. He was unconscious when it happened, which is the only mercy in this sequence of events. The fire caught his clothing. The fire then spread beyond him to nearby material in the yard. By the time the fire was discovered, it had grown enough to involve the structure of the house as well. The fire department ruled the house fire as originating from an unattended outdoor grill, which is accurate in the most technical sense. But unattended requires some reconsideration when the person attending it had a medical emergency that removed their ability to attend. There is no lesson in this one that protects against medical emergencies. What there is, if you are grilling alone, tell someone where you are. Keep your phone on you. The grill itself is not the villain here. The villain, if there is one, is the absence of anyone who could have intervened in the 4 minutes that separate a medical event from something irreversible. The shirt. Most of what kills people in the context of barbecue is dramatic. Explosions. Flammable fuel misapplied at speed. Objects detaching from vehicles and achieving airborne status. The events that make the news tend to be events with some kind of scale to them. This one is quiet. This one is the size of a shirt. 73-year-old man in Spanish Fork, Utah, was in his backyard in 2018 lighting a charcoal grill. This is an activity he had presumably done many times before. You take the charcoal, you arrange it, you apply lighter fluid or a chimney starter, you light it. Standard procedure, nothing inherently dramatic about it. When you lean over a grill to light it, you lean over an open source of flame. Your arms are extended, your face is close to the work, your torso is angled toward the heat source, and whatever you are wearing is in the vicinity of the flame as you create the flame. His shirt caught fire. He was alone. There was no one in the backyard with him. There was no one to help him put it out. He was 73 years old and his shirt was on fire, and he was the only person present. He died from his injuries. The lesson that every outdoor cooking safety guide gives you, and that most people read once and forget, is this: wear close-fitting clothing when you grill. Not loose fabric that hangs over the heat source. Not a baggy shirt that can drift into the flame. If you are going to be near fire, consider what is on your body and how it behaves near fire. And tell someone where you are. Not because the grill is dangerous, you can manage the grill, but because if the grill wins, even briefly, you need someone nearby who can change the outcome in the next 30 seconds. He managed grills his whole life. He managed one grill once, alone, and the shirt was the variable he had not planned for. The vapor trail. This is the last one, and it is the one that once you understand it, you will never forget. Because unlike several of the cases in this video, which involve unusual circumstances, improbable events, objects flying through the air, this one involves something that happens in backyards across America every summer, every weekend, multiple times per day. The scenario: your charcoal grill has been going for a while. The coals were lit, they were doing their thing, but then you got distracted, or the coals were not quite right, or the fire went down lower than you wanted. You pick up the lighter fluid, the bottle, the one with the pointy cap that you squeeze to squirt. You squeeze the bottle over the coals. Here is what you can see: the lighter fluid landing on the coals. The flame, if any, is still going, possibly flaring up a little. Standard stuff. You've seen this before. This is fine. Here is what you cannot see: the vapor. Lighter fluid and gasoline and any flammable liquid does not just sit where it lands. It evaporates. It produces vapors at room temperature. Those vapors are heavier than air, so they drift downward and outward from where the liquid is. If there is any fire nearby, which there is, because you are using this liquid specifically because there is fire, those vapors form a continuous flammable path between the fire and the bottle. The ATF calls this flame jetting. The fire travels along the vapor trail from the coals back toward the bottle in your hand. Not slowly, fast. And the flame arrives at the bottle before you have any time to process that it is coming, because it is traveling an invisible path that you did not know existed. Multiple people have died from this. Multiple more have been severely burned. The cases are documented. The phenomenon is understood. It is in fire safety manuals. And every summer, someone who has not read those manuals picks up a bottle of lighter fluid, squeezes it toward coals that are still hot, and finds out about flame jetting in the most direct way possible. The fix is not complicated. You do not add lighter fluid to hot coals. You add it to cold coals before you light them, and then you step back before you introduce the ignition. Or you use a chimney starter, which requires no fluid at all and which has exactly 0 cases of flame jetting in its history. Or you wait. You let the coals do what coals do, which takes time but does not involve a physics problem that wants to follow a vapor trail back to your hand. The self-made gas chamber meets Celia Seymour. Celia woke up one fine morning and said, "Today is the day. Today this bathroom gets annihilated." Admirable dedication. Truly, the kind of motivation most of us save for New Year's resolutions, we abandoned by January 4th. Now here's where it gets spicy. Celia, a woman of ambition, decided that regular cleaning products were for quitters. Why use one when you can combine 2 for double the power? Right? She grabbed her household bleach, the kind with chlorine, and her toilet bowl cleaner, the kind with ammonia. And she went full mad scientist on that bathroom. Here's the thing they don't teach you in school, but probably should. Chlorine plus ammonia equals chloramine gas. That's not a new cleaning product. That's a chemical weapon, like the actual kind. Used in actual wars, by actual armies trying to actually kill people. Celia passed out. The bathroom she was trying to save became the thing that ended her. She died in hospital from severe chemical burns to her lungs and a fatal asthma attack triggered by inhaling a substance that militaries consider a war crime. The lesson here? Sometimes good enough is good enough. The toilet does not need to be a mirror. Let it be slightly gross. It's a toilet. Nobody is eating off it. And if they are, you have bigger problems than cleaning supplies. Also, please read the labels. That little warning that says do not mix with other chemicals isn't a suggestion from a bored guy at the factory. It's a genuine cry for help from someone who foresaw exactly this situation. The ladder, the line, and the lesson nobody needed to learn. Now we head to a 2-story house somewhere in the world, where a guy decided to paint his own home. Totally reasonable. Home improvement. Self-sufficiency. Very American energy. Even if this particular guy might not have been American. The spirit was there. He gets the whole front of the house done. He's feeling great. Probably mentally calculating how much money he just saved. He's already spending it in his head. New TV, nice dinner, maybe a little weekend trip. Life is good. And then he decides to move his ladder to the other side of the yard. Here's the critical detail. The ladder was aluminum, and it was extended. And he did not bother to collapse it before carrying it across the yard. And above the yard, quietly doing its thing, was a high-voltage power line. You can see where this is going. The ladder touched the cable, and that was it. Game over. No new TV, no dinner, no weekend trip. Now look, electricity does not mess around. High-voltage lines carry enough current to vaporize your bad decisions along with everything else. Aluminum, being a metal, conducted that electricity directly through the ladder, through the man holding it, and into the ground. The worst part, and this is genuinely maddening, all he had to do was fold the ladder down. That's the one move. The ladder folds, that's literally its whole design. It's called an extension ladder because it extends and then it unextends. It takes about 15 seconds. 15 seconds that would have saved his life. But no, he chose the speedrun route. And this is the ending you get with that strategy. The apartment that became a bomb for no good reason. Oh, this one. I need everyone to take a breath before we proceed because what I'm about to describe requires a moment of preparation. A man was renovating his apartment. Old linoleum flooring, glued down solid to the concrete. Classic nightmare. If you've ever tried to remove old stuck-down flooring, you know the kind of hatred it inspires. You pry at it, it laughs at you. You scrape, it mocks you. It has been there for 40 years, and it intends to stay for 40 more. So he asked around, and someone whose name we should all like to know, suggested pour gasoline on it to dissolve the adhesive. And this man, faced with a floor that had beaten him, thought, you know what? That tracks. He poured gasoline. A lot of it. Generously. Enthusiastically. The floor was soaked. The apartment smelled like a gas station at this point, which should have been, at minimum, a yellow flag, ideally a red one, and really more of a siren with flashing lights and a guy in a hazmat suit yelling, "Get out." But the thing about gasoline vapor is that you can't always see it. It spreads invisibly, low to the ground, filling the room, creeping into the next room and the next one, silently making its way to the kitchen, where the refrigerator was running. Now, refrigerators have compressors. Compressors have relays. Relays produce sparks. Small sparks, tiny, barely noticeable sparks that under normal circumstances do absolutely nothing except run your fridge. But gasoline vapor isn't normal circumstances. Gasoline vapor is a party waiting for one single invitation, and the compressor relay sent it. The resulting explosion blew out every window in the apartment. The man did not survive. The floor, ironically, probably still had linoleum on it. There are rental services. There are floor scrapers. There are professionals who remove flooring for a living using tools that do not involve one of the most flammable substances on Earth. There's even a YouTube tutorial for literally every home improvement task imaginable. Every single one. Except apparently how not to explode your apartment, because that one was assumed to be self-evident. It was not self-evident? The man who turned his water heater into a rocket. A man had a broken water heater. Did he call a plumber? No. Plumbers cost money. He was a capable adult male. How hard could it be? He replaced the thermostat himself. Good start, technically. But he wired it wrong, specifically in a way that bypassed the pressure relief valve. Now, the pressure relief valve is not optional equipment. It is not decorative. It is the one thing standing between hot water and improvised explosive device. It exists for one purpose: to release pressure before the tank reaches levels that physics no longer tolerates. Without it, the water heater just kept heating, and kept heating, and kept heating. The water boiled, steam built up, pressure climbed. The tank, a metal cylinder full of superheated steam, had nowhere to release it. A few hours later, the boiler went full rocket. The explosion was catastrophic. The water heater punched through the ceiling of the first floor, through the actual concrete and structure of the house, into the second floor, where the man was sleeping. He did not wake up to see what had happened, which in some morbid way might be the kindest thing about this entire story. It's worth noting that water heater explosions are violent enough to have launched tanks through the roofs of houses in documented cases. This is not a slow, polite failure. This is a pressure vessel becoming a projectile. It is, mechanically speaking, a rocket. An unguided, house-penetrating rocket that cost you about $40 in parts and one very bad afternoon of DIY work. The plumber would have cost maybe $200, maybe $3, which, compared to the cost of a new ceiling, a new second floor, a funeral, and the existential horror your family would carry forever, is, in retrospect, an absolute bargain. The garage spring that had absolutely zero chill. Let's talk about garage door springs for a second, because most people go their entire lives without ever thinking about them, which is honestly the correct approach. They're up there, they're doing their job, and the relationship works best when it stays completely one-sided. Here's what you need to understand about torsion springs. The big horizontal spring sitting above your garage door. That thing is under an almost incomprehensible amount of tension. We're talking about a coiled metal rod that's been wound so tight it contains enough stored energy to do serious damage if it ever decides to let go all at once. Engineers who work with these things use specialized steel winding bars, wear safety glasses, and treat the whole process with the kind of respect normally reserved for unexploded ordnance. Our guy decided a regular screwdriver would do. Now, I want you to really picture this. He's standing in front of the spring, screwdriver in hand, poking at a mechanism that is essentially a compressed metal explosion waiting for an excuse. The screwdriver slips. The spring unwinds in a fraction of a second, faster than a human nerve can process, faster than an eye can blink, and the metal hardware attached to it becomes a projectile moving at genuinely terrifying speed. It struck him in the skull. He did not survive. The specialized winding bars cost about $15 on Amazon. 15. That's what, 3 coffees? 2 beers? 1 mediocre fast food combo meal? The tools exist specifically because this exact scenario has happened enough times that someone sat down and designed a safer way to do it. But sure, screwdriver, that works too. Right up until it spectacularly, catastrophically doesn't. Moss on a roof, the eternal enemy of homeowners everywhere. It sits up there, green and smug, slowly eating through your shingles, and at some point you look at it and think, enough. Today, we settle this. The professional approach involves calling someone, paying them, and watching from ground level while they handle it with proper equipment, safety harnesses, and the general attitude of people who would like to go home at the end of the day. Our homeowner went a different direction. He was going to save money. He was going to get up there himself with a pressure washer, and he was going to end that moss. Now, let's do a quick physics rundown because this is genuinely instructive. A steep roof is already slippery. Add moisture to it, and it gets worse. Add a pressure washer actively blasting water at the surface you're standing on while simultaneously blasting loose the mossy layer that was, ironically, providing some grip. And you have created what engineers would call a frictionless inclined plane. What normal people would call an absolutely perfect slide. He slipped. No harness, no rope. Nothing between him and the ground except air and a rapidly shrinking distance. He landed headfirst on the concrete path below. Here's the thing about pressure washers that people tend to forget when they take them onto roofs. The recoil. These things push back. Every time you pull that trigger, physics sends an equal and opposite force straight into your body. On flat ground, manageable. On a wet sloped roof with no anchor point, it's basically a machine designed to push you off the edge. A safety harness, the kind you clip to your belt and attach to an anchor on the roof, costs about $30. 30. You could find one at any hardware store between the paint section and wherever they keep the stuff that definitely won't kill you if you use it correctly. He had a pressure washer, which was like 60 times more expensive. He just skipped the $30 part that keeps you on the roof. The moss, for the record, is probably still there. The tree that Reed Newton, and he did not this one, requires a brief physics lesson. But don't worry, it's the fun kind, where the physics lesson is illustrated by a pickup truck and a dead tree becoming a medieval siege weapon. A man had a dead tree in his backyard. Dry, brittle, leaning slightly, generally being an eyesore. He wanted it gone. Professional tree removal services exist. They are licensed. They have chainsaws and ropes and years of experience predicting exactly how a tree will fall before they make the first cut. They are also admittedly not free. So he improvised. He tied a thick cable to the top of the tree. Other end went to the trailer hitch on his pickup truck. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Gun it, cable goes taut, tree gets yanked over, tree falls away from truck. Everybody wins. Except, trees are not cooperative participants in this kind of plan. When he floored it, the tree broke at the base, right at ground level, which is the weakest point, which he would have known if he'd consulted literally anyone who removes trees professionally. And here's where Newton enters the chat. A tree breaking at the base, while under tension from a cable attached above its center of mass, does not fall away from the cable. It pivots. It swings. The cable becomes the arm of a catapult. The base of the tree becomes the fulcrum. And the entire massive crown of the dead tree goes exactly the direction that basic physics says it has to go. Straight back toward whatever is pulling the cable, the tree came down directly on top of his truck. Through the roof of the cab. He was inside the cab. There are so many moments in the story where someone could have said, wait, actually, and changed the outcome. Calling a tree service. using a longer cable, standing outside the truck, thinking for 30 seconds about what happens when a cable attached to the top of something pulls that something toward the ground and what direction it might swing. Any one of those thoughts. Just one. That's all it would have taken. But look, hindsight is 20/20. Foresight in this case only required about a 4th grade understanding of levers and pivots. But still, point taken. Now, you might be thinking, didn't we already cover the flammable vapors plus ignition source equals catastrophe scenario? Back with the gasoline floor guy? We did. And yet, here we are again. Because apparently this is a lesson that a measurable percentage of the human population needs to encounter multiple times before it sticks. Actually, scratch that. For some of them, it never sticks. Evidently. A homeowner was refinishing the floor in a small bathroom. No windows, no ventilation. He was using a flammable solvent-based sealant, the kind that comes with warnings on the label, warnings on the can, and warnings, in the fine print, that you'd see if you ever bothered to read it, which, as we've firmly established, is not everyone's strong suit. Solvent-based products release vapors as they dry. Those vapors are heavier than air, which means they sink. They fill the room from the bottom up, quietly, invisibly, accumulating in the corners and spreading across the floor like a lake of invisible gasoline. In a small, unventilated room, this happens fast. Faster than most people expect. And on the wall of this small, unventilated bathroom hung a gas water heater with a pilot light. A pilot light is, in the simplest possible terms, a small open flame that burns continuously. It does not turn off between uses. It does not know that someone is filling the room next to it with explosive vapor. It just burns, reliably and faithfully like it was designed to do, completely indifferent to the chemistry happening 3 feet away. The vapors reached the pilot light. The result was a vapor cloud explosion. The same mechanism as the gasoline apartment, the same physics, the same outcome, a pressure wave that destroyed the bathroom and killed the man inside it. Here is what kills me about this one, and I mean that metaphorically. Unlike our subject here, gas water heaters with pilot lights are required by code to have that burner up off the floor, specifically because flammable vapors sink. There are regulations about installing ignition sources in rooms where flammable materials might be used. These rules were written by people who looked at exactly this category of disaster and said, okay, let's make sure this never happens again. And then he used a flammable sealant in a room with an open flame with no ventilation and closed the door. If you're doing any kind of floor refinishing, painting, or solvent-based anything indoors, open every window, run a fan, turn off pilot lights, and maybe, just for the duration of the project, take a moment to read the warning label on the can. It's not long, it uses simple words, and it will almost certainly include the phrase, use only in well-ventilated areas, because that phrase exists specifically for this exact situation. The floor did not need to be sealed that badly. No floor does. Meet Joji, a 50-year-old former car factory worker living in Japan's Kanagawa prefecture. Now Joji had a hobby. And like most hobbies, it started innocently enough. A magazine here, a magazine there. Except Joji didn't stop. Over the years, he collected so many adult magazines that they filled every single room of his apartment. Wall to wall, floor to ceiling, every nook and cranny packed with glossy pages. We're talking a collection that, according to reports, weighed around 6 tons. That's the weight of an elephant. Living in his flat. Made of adult magazines. Now, the exact details of what happened next are a little unclear. And, honestly, maybe that's for the best. At some point, the towering stacks collapsed. Joji was found buried underneath the pile. Whether the magazines fell on him or he fell into them, we'll never know for sure. What we do know is that nobody noticed for weeks. It was only when his landlord showed up, wondering where the rent was, that the discovery was made. His family, desperate to protect their dignity, hired a discreet cleaning crew to quietly remove the magazines before anyone found out. Someone leaked it to the press anyway. So the lesson here, folks, is twofold. 1. Hoarding is genuinely dangerous, not just an inconvenience. And two, if you're going to live under a 6-ton secret, maybe also pay your rent on time. Story 2. The anvil that didn't fly. Most people have weird hobbies. Stamp collecting, bird watching, competitive eating. But then there was this guy from Iowa who decided his hobby would be launching anvils into the sky with gunpowder. Because apparently watching YouTube videos wasn't enough excitement. Yes, anvil shooting is a real thing. An old-fashioned pastime where you stack one heavy anvil on top of another, pack black powder between them, and detonate it, sending the top anvil rocketing hundreds of feet into the air. Is it crazy? Absolutely. Is it technically impressive? Kind of. Is it safe? It is not. Our 46-year-old hobbyist had done this before. He knew the basics. He had the equipment. What he didn't account for was a misfire, the kind where the gunpowder doesn't launch the anvil upward. Instead, it detonated sideways. The anvil didn't soar majestically into the Iowa sky. It exploded, and a large fragment struck him directly in the head. He was killed instantly. Now, to be clear, the anvil shooting community, yes, that's a community, does have safety guidelines. There are competition events. There are people who do this carefully and responsibly. This man was not one of them. The Darwin Awards committee would like to remind everyone that I've done this before is not the same as I know what I'm doing, especially when gunpowder is involved. Rest in the trajectory you chose, sir. Story 3. Electro fishing, literally. Every fisherman dreams of the perfect hack, a way to skip the hours of waiting, the lost bait, the empty bucket. Most people try better lures or different spots. This guy wired his lake to the mains. Somewhere in Indonesia, a man decided that conventional fishing was for people with patience, which he did not have. His solution? Take a gasoline-powered generator out onto the lake, lower bare electrical wires into the water, and electrocute the fish into floating to the surface. It's called electro fishing, and it's actually a real technique used by marine biologists and conservation teams with proper equipment, insulation, and safety protocols. It temporarily stunts fish so they can be counted, sampled, and released. Notice the words proper equipment and safety protocols. Our guy had a generator and some wire and a lake. When the electricity hit the water, the fish did exactly what he hoped. They floated up, stunned. Success! He leaned over the side of the boat, reaching out excitedly to grab his catch, lost his balance, and fell directly into the electrified water. In the blink of an eye, the fisherman became the fish. He died at the scene. Look, we've all gotten a little too excited about something and made a dumb decision. But when the something is a live electrical current in open water, maybe, take a breath before lunging for the prize. The fish, for what it's worth, recovered and swam away. Nature won this round. Story 4. The Bigfoot who forgot about cars. We've all done something embarrassing to get attention. Sent a risky text. Done karaoke sober. But Randy Lee Tenley took cry for attention to a whole new level. Randy, 44, of Kalispell, Montana, had a plan. A brilliant plan. He would put on a military-grade ghillie suit, the kind of full-body camouflage covered in strips of fabric that makes you look like a walking shrub, and stand on a busy highway at night. His goal? Make passing drivers think they'd spotted Bigfoot. Now, let's pause and appreciate the ambition here. Randy wasn't just going for it. He apparently had friends with him who knew the plan. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment impulse. This was premeditated Bigfoot cosplay on a public road at night. Montana Highway Patrol Trooper Jim Schneider later said, and I quote, "You can't make it up." Correct, Trooper. You cannot. What happened next was unfortunately very predictable. Randy stepped into the right-hand lane of US Highway 93. He was hit by a driver who didn't see him at all. As he lay in the road, a second car hit him too. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators confirmed his motive after interviewing his friends. And here's the cruelest punchline of all. Not a single driver called in a Bigfoot sighting. His plan didn't even work. The suit designed to make you invisible to the enemy is, shockingly, also very good at making you invisible to oncoming traffic. Who could have seen that coming? Everyone. Everyone could have seen that coming. Story 5. A phone call he couldn't make. We've all panicked and made a bad decision in the heat of the moment. Hidden something embarrassing under the sofa. Deleted a text thread. Thrown something in a bin and instantly regretted it. This man hid his contraband phone in his stomach. An inmate at a Dublin prison had managed to smuggle in a contraband mobile phone. No small achievement, and honestly, respect for the effort. But one day, prison guards announced a surprise cell search. Faced with a few seconds to hide the evidence, the man's brain offered up exactly one idea. Swallow it. Not hide it in the mattress, not toss it out the window. Not even the classic shove it in a sock. Swallow it whole. The phone, measuring roughly 68 long, lodged itself in his gastrointestinal tract. He was rushed to hospital where x-rays confirmed what everyone suspected. There was indeed a mobile phone inside this man. Doctors worked to remove it surgically, but the damage to his digestive system was too severe. He died before they could complete the procedure. Now here's the information part of today's story. Because we're not just here for the dark comedy. Foreign body ingestion is a genuine medical emergency. Objects that get stuck in the digestive tract can cause lacerations, perforations, blockages, and fatal infections. Even small objects can kill. The human body is not a storage unit. And no amount of contraband is worth your life. Especially not a phone that, once swallowed, you also can't use anymore. Story 6. Bees, piranhas, and the worst Sunday ever. Sometimes the universe just stacks the deck. And then it stacks it again. And then it puts piranhas in it. It was a quiet Sunday. 3 friends were out fishing on a lake in the Brazilian state of Minas Gerais. A perfectly normal, peaceful way to spend the afternoon. Then the bees showed up. A swarm descended on the group, and in a panic, all 3 men did what any reasonable person would do when faced with a horde of stinging insects. They jumped into the lake. 2 of them made it to shore. The 3rd didn't. When the fire department arrived to search for the missing man, a rescue diver was about to jump in. Until someone mentioned the lake was full of piranhas. The diver reconsidered. Hours later, they recovered the man's body 4 meters from the shoreline. The piranhas had not been gentle. Now, investigators weren't entirely certain whether he drowned first or whether the piranhas were more directly responsible. Either way, the outcome was the same. Here's the thing. Bee stings, while painful and occasionally dangerous, are survivable. You run, you cover your face, you find shelter. An unknown body of water in rural Brazil is a considerably more final solution. One friend later told reporters their boat had struck a submerged log, disturbing a beehive. So in a truly tragic twist, this whole catastrophe started because of a log. Not a monster, not a predator, a log. Nature, ma'am, she does not mess around. Story 7. The toad that wasn't a spirit guide. Somewhere between ancient healing ritual and genuinely fatal decision, there's a toad. A very toxic toad. And a photographer who probably should have Googled it first. Jose Luis Abad was an award-winning Spanish fashion photographer, a man whose work appeared in Vogue and other international publications. Talented, respected, apparently also very open to alternative experiences. In July 2019, Abad attended a private ceremony at a country house in Enguera, Valencia. The ritual involved inhaling vaporized venom from the Bufo alvarius, also known as the Sonoran desert toad, or the Colorado River toad. The venom contains a powerful hallucinogenic compound called 5-MeO-DMT, and the ritual has been compared to ayahuasca ceremonies, the kind that wellness influencers and celebrities post about after their transformative trip to Peru. The problem? This isn't ayahuasca. This stuff can stop your heart. And it did. Abad suffered cardiac arrest during the session. And here is where the story takes its darkest turn. According to reports, footage from Abad's own phone showed those present waiting 22 minutes before calling emergency services, spending that time instead attempting to revive him through prayer. He died. He was in his mid-40s. 3 people were subsequently arrested, including a well-known Spanish adult film actor who allegedly hosted and presided over the ceremony. They faced charges of involuntary manslaughter and violations of public health law, the authorities put it plainly. While the ritual was marketed as an innocent ancestral ceremony, it posed, in their words, a serious threat to public health, particularly to people who were vulnerable or seeking alternative cures for illness and addiction. The toad, for the record, survived. The toad always survives. And the lesson: when someone is having a cardiac arrest, pray later. Call an ambulance first. Story 8. When cake wins. In Australia, they celebrate their national day, Australia Day, with barbecues, beers, and apparently competitive cake eating at the local pub, which, honestly, sounds like a great time. Right up until it very much isn't. The Beach House Hotel in Hervey Bay held its annual Australia Day eating contest, a cheerful event involving lamingtons and meat pies. Lamingtons, for the uninitiated, are a classic Australian dessert. Sponge cake dipped in chocolate and rolled in desiccated coconut. Delicious, fluffy. Also, dry. Very, very dry. Madeline Biot, 60, was one of the contestants. The crowd was cheering. The atmosphere was festive, and she was going for it, shoveling lamington after lamington into her mouth as fast as she could. Then she had a seizure and choked. Hotel staff and a security guard rushed over and started CPR immediately. Paramedics arrived and rushed her to Hervey Bay Hospital. She didn't make it. The hotel released a statement expressing deep condolences and praised the swift response of staff and the Queensland Ambulance Service. Here's the sobering science behind it. Competitive eating, even with something as seemingly harmless as sponge cake, puts real strain on the body. Dry, dense food consumed rapidly is a genuine choking risk, and the speed and volume involved in contests removes the brain's natural slow-down signals. Choking deaths at eating contests, while uncommon, are not unheard of. The irony is considerable. Lamingtons are named after a 19th century governor of Queensland. They're soft, small, and beloved. Nobody warns you about them on a menu. Australia Day 2020 will not be remembered fondly at the Beach House Hotel. Story 9. The drive-thru that drove through him. You've heard of dying for a McDonald's, but this story is something else entirely. Michael Dickinson, 69, of Grand Island, Nebraska, was just trying to get breakfast. He pulled up to the payment window at a McDonald's on 2nd Street on a Tuesday morning, just before 10:30 a.m. The problem? He couldn't quite reach the payment terminal from inside the car. It's a frustration that literally millions of people experience every single day. The solution, for most of us, is to shuffle slightly forward and lean a bit harder, or roll the window all the way down, or even accept the mild indignity of underpaying and driving off. Not recommended. Michael's solution was to open the car door and lean out. At some point, investigators aren't entirely certain how, the car moved forward. Police Division Chief Dean Elliott described it as the vehicle potentially lurching forward. Michael was caught between the open door frame and the concrete drive-thru counter. He was taken to hospital and pronounced dead. The police chief called it 100% a freak accident, and that is exactly what it was. A tragic, bizarre, completely unforeseeable chain of events that turned an ordinary McDonald's run into something irreversible. Michael was, by all accounts, a warm and beloved grandfather, a lifelong mechanic, and a man with a great sense of humor. He had retired just 4 years earlier. He died 2 days before Christmas. There's no joke here that doesn't land wrong. So instead, check your parking brake. Every single time. Even at McDonald's. Especially at McDonald's. Story 10. The walrus just wanted a hug. A selfie. That's all he wanted. A selfie with a walrus, a 1.5-ton walrus, at a zoo, over the fence. Gle Jun was a businessman visiting the Shishajo Wildlife Park in Shandong Province, and at some point during the visit, he found himself in front of the walrus enclosure staring at an absolutely enormous marine mammal, and thought, I need a photo with that. Now, walruses are not vicious animals. They're not tigers or polar bears. They're blubbery, whiskered creatures that spend most of their time sleeping and eating shellfish. This particular walrus had lived at the zoo for over a decade and was, by all accounts, a gentle giant. But gentle and 1.5 tons are two words that don't cancel each other out. Gia climbed over the fence. He got his selfies. In fact, he took several photos and even sent a video to a friend on WeChat, apparently delighted with himself. He is quoted as saying, "The walrus was so strong, so big. Accurate assessment." Then the walrus grabbed him from behind and dragged him into the pool. Spectators watched, initially assuming it was playful behavior. A zookeeper, a man named Duan who had cared for the walrus since it was a baby, immediately jumped in to help. The walrus, in what zoo authorities diplomatically described as an attempt to play and give them a hug, held both men underwater. Both drowned. A friend who received Gia's last video told reporters, "Who would have thought that at 3 o'clock he would send me a video, talking and laughing?" And just a few minutes later, he was drowning in the water. The zookeeper's death is the part of this story that sits heaviest. He did everything right. He responded without hesitation to save a stranger. He died trying. The walrus didn't mean any harm. It's a wild animal, living in a zoo, doing what a 1.5-ton animal does when something jumps into its pool. The fence was there for a reason. Fences at zoos are always there for a reason. No selfie is worth this. Not one.